Hello and welcome to the first part of a three-part series on how to build Eliza plugins. In this video, we're looking at actions. I'm going to walk you through what actions are, how they work, and how you can build your own action. Actions are the core component that define how agents respond to messages and perform tasks. Think of them as the capabilities that allow your agents to actually do things. At its core, an action is a structured way to define a specific capability for your agent. Each action represents something your agent can do, whether that is responding with text, generating an image, transferring tokens, or interacting with external systems. In the Eliza plugin architecture, actions work alongside providers and evaluators. When a user sends a message to your agent evaluates all available actions to decide which one to execute. Each action includes a validation function that checks if it is appropriate for the current message, and a handler function that contains the actual implementation logic. Actions also include examples that help the agent understand when and how to use them. And now let's break down the structure of an action. Here we have a name property in the action interface, which is a string. It serves as a unique identifier for actions, meaning no two actions can have the same name. For example, an action for sending a message could have the name send message. Next, we have the similes properties, which is an array of string. It contains alternative names or triggers that can be used to refer to the action. The description property is a string that explains the purpose and intended usage of the action. It provides clarity on what the action does. The validation property is a function that determines whether the action can be executed. It takes runtime, message, and state as input and returns a promise, resolving to true if the action is valid and false otherwise. The handler property is a function that executes the action when triggered. It takes in runtime, message, state, options, and a callback. It returns a promise boolean, resolving to true if the action executes successfully. The example property is a two-dimensional array containing sample use cases for the action. This helps illustrate different ways the action can be used. And now that we have a high-level understanding of what actions are and how they work, let's actually go build one. So now that we have an overview of how actions work under the hood, we can go on and actually build out an action to see it function in real time. So before we do any of that, because this is a series on how to build Eliza plugins, I will be showing you how to set up your Eliza plugin development environment. Now, the first thing you want to go on ahead and do is to create a new folder under packages. This will be the name of your plugin. Now, there are a few consistencies in how plugins are named in Eliza, and we'll try to stick to that convention. So go on and create a new folder and add the plugin prefix and whatever you want to call your plugin. And now that we've created our plugin folder, we need a few things. We need to create an SRC folder. We need a tsconfig file, a tsub file, and our package.json file. I'm going to go on ahead and set all of that up, and we can move on to the next step. So we've created these files. The next thing we need to do will be to create our index.ts file, our actions folder, and then write our very first action. So our index.ts file is a really important file. It is the file that holds your plugin name and it allows you to work with the actions, providers, and evaluators you have created. Now, the first thing we want to do is to import plugin from Eliza into our index.ts file, and then we're going to give our plugin a name. Now I have Copilot set up, so it is, giving me a few suggestions, and I'll just work with them. Okay, so this is a very simple basic setup, and this works really well. And in our SRC folder, we will create an actions folder, and we will then create our action file. For me, I'll just call it first action. You can call it anything you want. The action we will be creating is a simple action that rolls a dice, right? So what this action does is, when a user sends in an input and tells Eliza to roll a dice, Eliza will then trigger this action and will give us a response based off of the logic we've implemented in our action. So the function of the action we're building will be to send a response to a user on the request of rolling a dice. So currently there isn't an action that solves that problem. So if I were to ask Eliza as is to roll a dice, let us see the response. So as you can see, it just gives me this response as opposed to an actual number. If we come here from the response, attempting to find action in similes and no action found for a roll dice. So currently there is no action to solve that problem, and Eliza has no idea what to do with this request. So when we're done building our action and we tell our agent to roll a dice, the agent actually knows what to do with that request, and it will roll a dice for us and give us a response. So let's go on ahead and build out our action. So the first thing you need to do when building out an action in Eliza is to import a few type interfaces. We're going to go on ahead and import these interfaces from Eliza's core, and I'll show you how to make use of them. So I'm going to begin building out the action and walk you through the code. All right, so now we have our name, simile, and description. The next thing we need to do is to write our validate function and our handler function. So the validate function validates if this action needs to run, and the handler function holds the actual logic of the rolling of the dice. So this is what our validate function is going to look like for this particular action. We're looking for a few keywords to validate if this action should run. So we're looking for things like roll, dice, or die. So when the user interacts with our agent, as we can see here, roll a dice, nothing happens because there isn't a plugin to solve that problem. So when we're done building our plugin and our agent looks out for keywords like this, it is going to trigger our action and then give our user an actual response. So now that we have our validate function, we're going to go on ahead and write our handler function and then a list of examples. For this simple action, this is the logic that our handler function is implementing. It is generating a random number and giving that response back to the user when we request to roll a dice. So once our agent is done running that calculation, we're going to send a response back to a user. Now to send responses back to the user, with Eliza plugins and actions, you need to make use of a callback. So this is what that would look like. So the callback can have a simple text response from the agent telling the user that it has carried out the task and this is the result, or whatever you want it to be really. In our case, they say, hey, I rolled a dice for you and this is the result. So our action is coming together nicely. The last thing we need are examples. So examples are examples of what the interaction should look like with this particular plugin or with this particular action. In our case, it is the user telling the agent to roll a dice and the agent gives the response. So I'm going to go on ahead and save this. So there are a few things you need to know when setting up a plugin with Eliza. Once you've built out your plugin, your actions, your evaluators and providers, you need to register your plugin in certain places. One of them is in the index.ts file under the agents folder. So once we've imported our plugin here, we're going to go on ahead and add it in the list of plugins. So I'm just going to search for plugins. And in this plugin array, we're going to add our new plugin. We're going to save and we should be good. So once we've added our plugin into the index.ts file of our agent folder, we're going to also import our plugin into the dependencies and the package.json of our root directory. And finally, we need to add our plugin into our agent. And this is the agent we're working with. It is the default character file. It is Eliza. So in our case, it is okay. I think that's about it. We're going to run npm build and everything looks good. And we're going to start our server. So we need to run the npm install and then build and then start. It should be good. So now that we have our server and everything looks good, we need to add the action we just created into our index.ts file of our Eliza plugin. So the new plugin we just created, if you head over to plugin, my plugin, src folder, index.ts, we are going to import our action and the name of our action is dice roll action. So I'm just going to do this and it's going to ask me to import. And so our action has been imported into our index. We're going to save that. We're going to run the build command and we're going to start our server. Okay, so the server is connected. And boom, as you can see, now we have an actual response from the agent. So as opposed to, it's just, rambling, but now we received the request from the user, it ran the logic and it gave us an actual response. I rolled the dice for you and you got 4. Now we're really just generating a random number from 1 to 6. So it is always going to give us something within that range. You could increase this, you could reduce this, you could do whatever you want to do with this. This is just to give you a head start on how to build actions as you go on ahead to build your plugins in Eliza. And so that is it. That is the first part of this 3-part series we're working on. Now you have a fully functional action in Eliza, and now in the next video I'm going to show you how to build evaluators. So actions are really the building block that defines what your agent can do. By understanding how to create and implement them, you can build really powerful agents. I hope this video has been helpful in your journey to building really cool agents. And yeah, stick around for the second part of the series, and until then, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.